Hi everyone, this is a conversation between you and me. Let me put the earphones because you will hear me better. Hear me better now? I don't know if you can hear me better now. Let me see. Can you hear me? Okay, yes, you can. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about something that is kind of important nowadays. Many people think that JavaScript is limited compared with Node.js. And I will tell you a secret. It is true in certain way. But if you are very good with JavaScript, you will be able you will be able to accomplish a very huge amount of things. Because JavaScript has the fetch API. JavaScript has the ability of making data tables, but also those data tables you can make them without jQuery. There was a time that it was necessary to make it with jQuery, and many people say, "Oh no, you can't use JavaScript because when you use JavaScript, you are too limited. You have to use data tables, you have to use another language to support the connection to the database." And it's kind of truth, but it's not truth totally. Being honest, if you are very good with JavaScript, you will be able to accomplish great things. Because I will tell you what happens. When you make a petition to the database, you just make it once. What matters is not the petition itself, but the query that you send to the database. So, if you create an API, let's say that you create the API on MongoDB with let's say that you created with PHP or with C Sharp, .NET, or even Node.js. At the end does not matter because what matter is the endpoint. You can even use GraphQL and you get the endpoint, and from the endpoint you decide what you want to get and how you want to show it with JavaScript. So at the end you are not limited with JavaScript. Also, one important thing is that Node.js is good when you want to experiment new things. And also React.js is good when you want to save code and you want to experiment new things. But at the end, React and Node has the disadvantage that the modules sometimes they have a very huge amount of size, and that size charges your computer. And also sometimes they make changes on the behind that you don't even know what is happening. You have a project that is totally stable, and from a moment to another it goes down, and you have to look for what is the reason, what could be. And sometimes I will go now, mom, voy ahora más. And sometimes you spend a lot of time that you could save, see, that you could save just by using JavaScript alone, because JavaScript is more mature. If you understand the importance of putting the API on one side and the front end at the other side, you will be able to use JavaScript in a very huge amount of power way. But this is also repeated with PHP and also with C Sharp. If you are a very good developer with C Sharp, you will be able to make a very huge amount of things. And the advantage is again the same. You are not overcharging the computer with code and things that sometimes you don't even know what are for. But with C Sharp, you also use modules, but those modules are kind of more restricted, reviewed, and more mature than Node.js. Node.js they are updating the modules like if they were kids, and that's something that I don't like, and that's why I have been even trying to grow in Node.js, and I have grown a lot. I know Nest.js, React.js, Node.js, and a lot of things, but the problem is that they always kind of had this little detail. They make changes on the behind that you don't even realize what happened. You say it's like, but you say like, but it was working. How is it that now, just 3 months, 2 months, 1 week after that, is not working? That module was supposed to work because that feature uh, had the ability of making this, but now it doesn't have it. And then you will have to make maybe an alternative, or maybe to look for the solution that you were not even expecting. But if you use native JavaScript, which is called vanilla JavaScript, you will save a lot of time. And that's why I love to be better, an expert on JavaScript and PHP, and for example, making APIs can be with C Sharp, with even with Node.js. Because I will tell you a secret. Node.js is good, but it's good only if you're gonna make an API, for example. But if you're gonna make a whole application with Node.js, React, and all those things that are on demand, sadly, those things are unstable. They are not as stable as they look, or as usually many people paint it. Because you can make a project very fast, but you look at the project 1 year after, and you will realize that you maybe will have to update all the dependencies, and that's not good. You will save that if you make only the application with JavaScript, let's say, and PHP, or with JavaScript and the API with Node.js. Why the API with Node.js? Because the API, if it has an error, it is just an error that is retrieving data. And it will not be something huge, because it is not something that is making that, for example, use effect, or after effect, or those things that are on not After Effect is actually a name of a program, but use effect, those things that are from React. When you realize those things are being overloaded, I mean, they are being overused and overloaded with with more functionality than the functionality that they should have. Because, for example, if you compare JavaScript has a lot of functions, but those functions are specifically for one specific thing. Same thing happened with PHP. If you use, for example, an include, a require, a session start, I don't know, a session destroy, uh, a connection close, all those things are specifically, I mean, they are so specific that sometimes if you use them before the time that you should use them, the whole project would stop, and you say, what happened? But you just have to think, oh, the thing is that I called this function before the time that it should have been called, and that's it. And if you use JavaScript, for example, you won't be with those kind of errors, but you will maybe get an error from the API, a response saying the database could not be reached. And you go to the API, and you see that in the API that endpoint is actually having that error. Then you check the query. Then you check that the query maybe has one problem. After you check that, you go and check the database. And when you check the database, you see that maybe in the database the problem was as simple that the data type that someone inserted was uh, wrong, or maybe that the query is outdated. I mean, the language that you are using changed something when you make the petition in the query. So remember that always. API and front end should be divided. If you know how to do that and you do it good, as better as you do it, as faster you will finish the projects. For example, I like much to start always with this sequence. I make the front end in my mind and I codify it more or less. And I make sure that the connection and petitions are always stable. And meanwhile, I am also working in the front end, making sure that the petitions are all right. And at the end, I refine the petitions to the database so that the data, when I get it, it is exactly as I am asking it. Just like, for example, the models and the schemas. You know that the schemas are for us to make sure that the data that we ask has a specific types, a specific name fields, and a specific fields on the database. And when you do so, you will be more than a simple developer. And this is the importance of understanding why and when to use Node.js and when not to use it, and why and when to use JavaScript and when not to use it also, because you can also use PHP. If it is a project that it is very common, I will tell you one secret. PHP is super versatile, I mean, super flexible for something that is very common. But the bad thing of PHP is that it can be tiring. I mean, as it is very powerful, sometimes it will make you feel tired faster than JavaScript. That's why it's better to create the API with the languages that are server side and the front end with JavaScript or with languages that are very good with the side of JavaScript. For example, there is a language that is recent that is called, for example, Go. You can use Go. Also, there is another language which is a framework you can use, for example, React. But you have to know when. That's the thing, when. Okay, it's not comparing. The thing is the when you are gonna use them. There are people that are like obsessed. They use React.js for everything, or they use Next.js for everything, or I don't know. They always are like always trying to follow the trending topics, and that's not good. That's not actually not being a good developer. A good developer can make a very huge project in a old language, C sharp, C++. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is simple. Don't be obsessed and try to divide what should be divided in the time that it corresponds. When you are able to do that, you will come back to me and you will say, thank you, Ray. So, see you in the next video. Bye bye.